until we're waiting for everybody to join, I can just say a couple of quick words about our organization, who we are, what we do, and then starting to using Peter with a funny story, or hopefully at least it's funny for me. Briefly, we are the Hungarian Innovators and Scientists Society in Silicon Valley, which is a very illustrative name for a bunch of guys who are mainly intellectuals based out of Silicon Valley, working at large tech companies or research labs or universities, and just want to have a good intellectual discussion about various topics and connect on an intellectual level here as Hungarians with our language, with our cultural background. However, in the spirit of inclusivity, we want to have all these conversations in English, making sure that if anybody else from the region or around the planet would like to join us, they can also participate and add to the discussion. So what we do is we do about once a month one of these very interesting presentations. We invite a guest speaker. Today, I have the pleasure to have Peter Szeremi. Last month, we had Piroska Zoli from actually Budapest, talking about how to build startups. He built startups in Silicon Valley. He built startups in Hungary and in Europe, and talking a little bit about that experience and comparing the two ecosystems. We also have highly technical presentations. So we had Porkoláb Miklós, for example, from MIT, talking about fusion energy and the state of that, which was a fantastic presentation. I enjoyed it a lot. And actually, we also had Peter last year as a presenter talking about, was it last year or the year before? I forgot. But anyway, we have the presentation up on YouTube. Was it last year, Peter?
It was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Wow. Yeah. So it was
back in those ages when people were still meeting each other and having dinners together. I don't even remember. It was so long ago.
Yeah, it feels like a different era, It's like before COVID and after COVID. But it's true, and it was also an online presentation, and it was, from that point of view, quite unconventional because we were still meeting in person. And actually, a few of us met in person to jointly watch it and listen to it and have participate in the discussion. And of course, it had a really good live on YouTube. We uploaded it on YouTube. It got a lot of views and clicks. It's about how to present your idea, particularly if you're like more scientifically minded, like many of us. So if you didn't have a chance to check it out, maybe as a follow-up, we will send you an email with the link to that. So yeah, that's it about our organization. Our next presentation is going to be the first Thursday of May, and it's going to be about what type of skills we should educate our youngsters on for getting them ready for the new digital era, right? And how does that work? So we'll send you more information after the presentation. We usually just send it out a couple of weeks in advance. We don't want to get people confused and overload them with too much information. So that's enough about us. And just briefly, a quick shout out to Zoltán Egyet, who is our vice president, and Joseph Patvarsky, who is also our vice president. So we have a smaller team, and maybe we have others also I don't see here. Laszlo Borbe, and many others who actually support us on a day-to-day basis, help us with great ideas. Zoli organizes all these video meetings and maintains our website, which is under reconstruction now, so expect an update on that soon. And yeah, that's it. So we're a small team. If you have ideas, by the way, you can email it to Zoli or me directly, or to our office at hungariansv.com. And happy to take it up. So that's enough from the marketing perspective. Let's talk a little bit about Peter. So let me share a quick story. So I met Peter, I think, like 12 years ago, maybe around 2010, 2011 timeframe. He had a really great club back in Hungary, which was Ivy Plus, and it was all the alumni who graduated from an Ivy League school or top university and they live in Hungary. And at that time, I was thinking about my MBA, coming to the States, doing my MBA here. And I connected with Peter, and we talked about a lot of things. And then eventually, one thing that happened was that obviously I needed the, speaking coaching, presentation coaching. And I was doing a lot of presentations at that time, and obviously I still need a lot of coaching. So, it's a constant effort. But I remember in 2012, I think it was 2012, I was getting ready for a presentation. I got invited by my alma mater back in Romania, actually, in Transylvania, to talk about my career. And Peter had me prepare that presentation. It was only 10 minutes, and I didn't use any slides. I only used a whiteboard. And I even up just to give you an idea about the impact, there were about, I don't know, like 40 people, mainly students there. But we also had a couple of other presenters, right? Like, so we had the CEO of the largest toy company in Romania, and, a lot of other people who were, much more senior than I was, talk about their career path and their take on this topic. And just a month ago, I got a ping from the former CEO of this large oil company saying that, I remember your presentation. 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I remember your presentation. And I'm at the stage, I just retired, after 17 years of my career. And I'm thinking about the next step because I want to still be active. And what's your advice? And I'm like, I don't know anything about career management. but yeah, so when Peter talks about talking with impact, I think this is what he refers to, and I in my personal opinion, I fully believe that, and it's just phenomenal that people actually, years later, decades even, they remember the presentation, they remember you, and they reach out. So yeah, I can say a lot of other things about Peter, of course, and many of you read his bio. He's also a fellow Stanford grad, like I am, and I love that. He worked with Zimbardo, which is just a legend. Many of you probably saw there's a new documentary coming out about the prison experiment, and maybe it was because of that or other reasons, but I felt like this topic of today, misinformation, is so important, because there's so many good people who are getting misled by, false information. And I think it's, in a way, as scientists, as intellectuals, it is also our role to kind of be a guiding light in some of these situations, to be a reference point. And probably many of you also get pinged by your relatives, by your friends, asking about advice on, what to do about vaccination. Should I get vaccinated? Should I do this? Should I do that? And these are very difficult conversations, especially when emotions come into play, high stakes. Sometimes, it's people's life that we're dealing with here, right? And I just had this conversation with actually my mom a couple of weeks ago, who was like, oh, I don't know if I should get vaccinated or not. And I read it on Facebook that, I'm going to have crocodile skin growing and stuff like that. And it's your mom, right? And it's just a hard conversation. So without any further ado, I think my introduction was quite long, but please, Peter, take it away.
Thank you very much, Csaba, for the great introduction. I'm really proud of you that you made such an impactful presentation 10 years ago, that people call you up and they ask for advice. That's really great. That's really fantastic. So thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be here. And today the topic is how to influence people who believe misinformation. And yeah, probably you know that fake news, misinformation has been a very, very hot topic in the past couple of years. Today, I don't want to go into a big philosophical discussion. I want to give you very practical tips about what to do in interpersonal situation, like when you talk to someone, maybe a relative, maybe a friend, and that person keeps insisting on things that you surely know to be false, and you just really don't understand what's going on here. How could they believe that? I mean, they are supposed to be intelligent people sometimes, and still they believe this. So what do? What's our first instinct? Because we are smart people, because we are intelligent people, we push with more facts, push with more reasoning, we try with more logic. And most of the time, it just makes things worse. Because the other person, instead of being converted and instead of saying, oh my God, you're right. Yeah, I didn't know this fact. Thank you. Instead of this, they just push back. They say, oh, no, your source is not believable. Actually, they tell you that you are spreading fake news. You're maybe gathering information from the wrong sources. So you get so frustrated and really just you just don't understand. Well, hopefully by the end of this talk, you will have some tools under your belt how to increase your chances of influencing people in these kinds of interpersonal situations. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a magic pill or a magic tool in my hands. So what I'm going to talk about is not going to be effective 100% of the time, unfortunately. But I'm convinced that you will be able to boost your influencing skills. Now, before I start giving you practical tips, in the chat, I asked some questions, and maybe some of you saw it, some of you joined later. And first of all, because I want to get to know you a little bit better. You know, it's a kind of hard stuff to talk to people who are not in the same room. So I asked, where you're from. A couple of people answered. So we have people from Canada, from Hungary, from California. Where else? From England, from Puerto Rico, from France. So we have people from all over the world. And I also asked, what would you like to influence people about? What would be the topic and who would you like to influence? And I have some interesting answers so far coming in. I have the vaccine situation. Somebody said that they would like to influence their sister and her sister's husband about vaccination. And of course, President Trump came in already in the chat section. Somebody said that Cynthia said she wants to influence a family member who believes much of the Trump era inaccuracies. Anybody else? So just write in the chat, please, where you're from, and is there any topic which especially interests you, so we can have a sense of what the needs of the audience are. So Gabor is from Hungary. Hello, Gabor. Vaccination. I think vaccination will be the hot topic today. Anybody else has any ideas? I'm looking at, that's why I'm looking to the side. I'm looking at the chat window. Anybody else wants to give their opinion? Actually, you are very welcome to put in your questions during the talk in the chat window. I will reserve about 15-20 minutes at the end for questions, though. So we'll have a chance to answer questions then. Okay, Benza says he wants to influence his good friends who thinks Trump is the best things that happened to the USA. So Trump and vaccination, two of the hot topics that I see in the chat. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce to you a tool which was developed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Yes, the FBI. And the FBI's Crisis Negotiation Unit. The Crisis Negotiation Unit. Now, I think you can imagine what kind of situations the Crisis Negotiation Unit handles, right? You can even write in the chat, what kind of situations do these guys handle? Crisis Negotiation Unit. What do you think? Hostages. Yes, hostages are one area that they are involved. Okay, what else? What do you think? Hostage rescue, yes. Hostages, anybody else? Okay. Terrorists, suicides, treaty negotiation, yeah, dealing with the spy. So just imagine a real tough situation, and just imagine your typical FBI negotiator going into the scene, of course, with the team behind his back, and they want to convince the let's suppose now the bank robber. Let's use the example for today of a bank robber who took hostages, and this hostage negotiator just wants to convince this person to let these people go, walk out of the building. Okay, probably you've seen many movies where people like Kevin Spacey, Samuel L. Jackson, they try this. Now, the FBI's crisis negotiation unit synthesized their knowledge, and they put together a model, which I will present to you now, which is going to be actually a 5-stage model. So the name of this model you will see on the screen is the FBI Behavioral Change Stairway Model. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, you will see 5 steps here. I walk you through 5 steps, and I'll use examples, and hopefully by the end you will see how to increase your chances of trying people to change, maybe change a behavior, maybe change a view. Okay, so let's see the first step. Okay, so the first step is called active listening. What does it mean, active listening? Well, in order to actively listen, you need 2 things. First of all, it's pretty obvious, you need to pay attention. Okay, that's pretty obvious, but it's not enough. It's not enough just to pay attention to someone who is talking. Another thing that is very, very important, you need to actually signal to them that you're paying attention. You need to show that you're paying attention. How? Well, I'm talking to you now, and it's nice to see that some of you are nodding. Yes, you can, I can see that some of you are nodding, some of you are taking in the information, some of you are signaling to me that you're listening to me. So one of the things that you can do is you can nod, you can say like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what else can you do? When somebody finished what they have to say, you can repeat what you heard. So let's go with the bank robber example. Okay, hostage negotiator goes in, bank robber says, all right, listen to my demands. I want the following. I want 2 white suitcases with $10 million. I want a limousine to take me to the airport, where I want to have a white private jet fly me to the island of Hawaii, where upon landing, I want Madonna to sing me La Isla Bonita. Okay, let's suppose the bank robber says that these are his demands. Okay, now the hostage negotiator listens to these demands, and what could he say? What could he say to these demands? He could say,
why is it white suitcase and white plane?
right?
And why this specific song from Madonna?
Okay. Mihai says we only have Beyonce and not Madonna. Yes. Or actually, the hostage negotiator could say, are you kidding me, man? This is not going to happen. You're a fool. Right? He could say that, because these are very irrational demands. These are like, oh my God, what this? How can somebody think that they are going to get this? So this is just so irrational that the other person, the hostage negotiator, could say, are you kidding me? What would happen, you think? if the hostage negotiator just did that? What would happen if he said, "Are you kidding me, man? It's not going to happen"?
People get
Start
killed.
shooting the hostages.
Yeah, probably people would get killed, people would get injured. So it's probably not a good strategy. That's not what they teach you at the hostage negotiator school. So we go back to active listening. So instead of this reaction, the hostage negotiator is much better off saying, so what was your name again? Kevin. If I'm listening correctly, what you want is you want $10 million in white suitcases. Let me just ask, is the white suitcase important? Can it be another color? No, says the bank robber. It's very important because my favorite color is white. All right. I'm just asking. You said to take you to the airport, the limousine, and the white private jet. Now, what if we have a different color to fly you to Hawaii? No. I told you before, white is my favorite color. I want a white jet. All right. I'm just asking. I just want to get to know you. I just want to get a sense of what you want. And also, you mentioned Madonna. Let me ask you, why Madonna? Madonna, because I was in love with her when I was a little guy, and my dream has always been, having her sing for me in a private event, and finally my dream can come true, says the bank robber. Okay, so how did the hostage negotiator ask those questions? Very important word coming up: non-judgmentally, without judgment. Okay. He was asking questions like he was a detective who was curious. Okay, because he could have asked these questions like this. So you said Madonna? Why Madonna? And you said that you want a white private plane? Why white? Probably you can tell, hopefully you can see my facial expression, that if the hostage negotiator talked that way, that would have included judgment. And we don't like to be judged. Nobody likes to be judged. Nobody likes to be put in a position where they feel inferior. Nobody. Okay? That's key. That's very important. That's why this first stage of the pyramid, this step model, is so key, because we can really mess it up here by being judgmental, by not listening fully, or by not showing to the other person that we are listening. So, of course, what I am saying is very true in discussions about vaccinations, for example. So let's just suppose you talk to somebody in your family, somebody in your friend circle, and they say the following: you know what? I'm just curious that this vaccine, the first vaccine, have been developed in under a year. Now, the previous world record was 4 years. Before that, it usually took 10 years to make a vaccine. It's just so fast and hurried and rushed that there is just no way that this is safe. And you know what? I'm just not gonna let them change my DNA. I'm just not gonna let that happen. They say that, let's suppose, okay? So that's another example. We go from a bank robber. Again, your reaction could be, are you kidding me? How can you be so ignorant? Okay, here is a scientific newspaper. Why don't you read it? I show you the scientific data, and you're just being just so foolish to assume that this is not safe and it will change your DNA. You could say that. It's understandable that you're upset, because you actually know something, right? You know something that the other person doesn't, but it doesn't pay off. It's just not a good strategy to attack them right away with your knowledge. I am much better than you. I know much more than you. So it's better also in that situation to actively listen. Okay, it's very hard. I know, and sometimes I'm not very good at this. Okay, let me Let me admit it, okay? Sometimes I lose patience and sometimes I do the wrong example. So it's better just say, okay, so if I understand you correctly, you're afraid that it's going to be bad to your system. You're afraid that it's going to change your DNA, and you also, if I hear you correctly, you're afraid that it was just a very quick work, and there must be something in this vaccine which is not safe for you. Is that what you're thinking? So this is the first stage. In this first stage, you don't have to be smart yet. You don't have to be smart yet. Actually, if you're too smart in this first stage, you try to push the other person into changing their point of view, they will push back and you will go crazy. So don't push back, don't be smart, don't use your intelligence yet. There will be a time and place for that later in this model, okay? So active listening, okay? Let's see what's happening after this phase. So after the active listening phase, you start asking more questions. Let's go back to the bank robber hostage negotiator. Hostage negotiator says, okay, so let me ask you about this this private plane situation that you said that you want to take this plane to Hawaii, and I'm just curious why is the Hawaii, and why is the destination, why is the private plane so important to you? Okay, watch my tone again. It's non-judgmental. It's very important, okay? I didn't ask the question, why the private plane and why Hawaii? Now, as the person responds, the person says, you know what? I've always been someone who never left actually my state. I never left my state before. And I was always laughed at by people that, oh, you're just this provincial person who is just moving within the state boundaries, and I've always dreamt about going away and going to an island, just like the important people do it. The stars do it. Oh, says the hostage negotiator. So you want to be somebody who is respected, and you feel that this is your chance now. And the guy says, yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what I want. So the second stage in this model, empathy, means that as you ask more and more questions and you spend time with the person, you begin to understand where they are coming from. Very important distinction coming. It doesn't mean that you agree with them or sympathize with them. Okay? So it doesn't mean that the hostage negotiator says, actually, it's a good idea to rob a bank. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice. I would go to Hawaii. Yeah, that's a good thought. No, it's not. Understanding is not the same as agreeing. Let's go back to the vaccination example. Okay, so you want to ask more questions. Like, I just want to know where did you read that information that it will change your DNA, or who said it to you? And the person answers and say, oh, and you really trust that person, right? Probably you talk to them and you believe what they say. Yeah, because this person always, is very knowledgeable, and what they tell me is usually true, okay? So you talk more, you ask questions non-judgmentally, and then you begin to have more and more empathy, which is great news for you, because then you can probably advance to the third stage of this model, which is called rapport. And when you're there, you can really celebrate, because you achieved something very important. You achieved trust. You achieved trust, which means rapport means that you don't do rapport. That's what the other person feels, okay? So in our example, the bank robber feels that, hey, we really have a connection here, a rapport, connection, trust. Yeah, you get me, man. Yes, this is my chance to be somebody. Yeah, this is my chance to show these cool guys in school that I can make it. I can be cool like them. So when the other person signals to you that, yeah, that's exactly, you seem to really understand me, and you really seem to understand my point of view. That's where you have rapport. The third stage of this model, you have trust. And why is it important to have trust? Because if you have trust in a conversation, in a relationship, then the other person opens up and they will be ready to listen to your advice, opinion, influence. So important. If you don't have trust, if the other person feels, yeah, you're just smarter than me, you think you're smarter because you went to this prestigious college and I'm just a community college graduate, you think that? They will, I don't know if you can see that, they will sit like this with arms crossed, and you can be the smartest person in the room. Your conversation partner is not going to be open to receive your wonderfully smart ideas. Sorry. They will be closed. And that's our tragedy usually, that we want to push, and we want to push too soon with our arguments, with our smart ideas, and the other person is not ready. Same in a private conversation at home with your partner. If you don't listen, if you don't know what they are fearful about, what they are concerned about, then your suggestions about what to do will just fall on deaf ears. So very important. That's probably the most important part. You always want to remember that, okay? When you talk to someone and you feel this, you feel this electricity that, oh my God, they are just so stupid, and how can they believe that? And you would be just ready to crush them with your smart arguments. You have to ask yourself, do we have rapport? Do we have a trustful connection here? Does the other person feel that I actually understand where they are coming from? Let me give you a saying which I really like. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And we forget about it a lot of times, and that's why we run into resistance. Also, with the, if we go on with the vaccination example, first you need to listen. I know it's hard. Again, it's very hard, because you would think, oh my God, no. But if you want to influence, first you need trust, you need understanding, and you really need to listen to the other person's fears, insecurities. And you really need to put yourself in their shoes. Empathy, that's what's needed here. Without that, it'll be very hard for you to convince somebody. Okay? And once we have that, once we have the trust, once people know that we care about them, then finally we can go to the stage we've all been waiting for: influence. Yes, finally. Finally, we can be smart. Finally, we can say our opinion. But important thing here, even if on the fourth stage, you say your opinion, you tell your advice, this has to be related to what you heard before. So if somebody is like saying to you, I'm so scared, I'm so insecure, I'm really scared that something bad is going to happen to me. I had this bad experience with vaccines before, or I had a family member who had this bad experience with vaccines before. You listen to this concern, and when you tell, your advice, you should phrase it in a way which is really linking back to the concern, like saying, listen, I know that you had some previous bad experiences, and that leaves you more cautious now with this one. I understand. And you say that 1 year probably is not enough to come up with something that usually takes 10 years. Let me give you an example with Formula One cars and how they change the tires. When you want to change a flat tire with your car, how much time does it take? Maybe 15, 20 minutes, right? For me, it's an hour. But if you watch a Formula One race, they do it in like 20 seconds. Why do they do that? Because everything is there. Every resource is put into doing a job. People are cooperating, and this is just the very ideal situation. Takes 20 seconds instead of 20 minutes. Okay. Similar thing is with the vaccines. Yes, I understand that it might seem that wow, this was just such a short time that it's impossible. But just think about the Formula One car example. That when every resource is put into that, when everybody's working on that, and really it's the ideal situation. They didn't leave out anything important. They just really shortened the time because of this unprecedented cooperation. So you say something which is taking into account what they said before. With the bank robbery example, the hostage negotiator could say something like this, and listen, this is going to be like bad news. What the hostage negotiator is telling the bank robber, saying, Kevin, look, man, I know your story now. I know that you want to be respected, and I know that you think that this is your chance. Kevin, it's not going to happen. Sorry, it's not going to happen. What's going to happen are two options. Either you come out with me, and then it's still going to be prison time for you, or the SWAT team is going to come in, and this is going to be ugly. Kevin, this is the sad truth. So you realize I'm giving somebody bad news, but what if I was giving this person the bad news right in the beginning when they were just telling, what they wanted, right? Probably more resistance. So it's okay for you to say no to somebody, to say, I don't agree with you on this, to say, I have another perspective, or even say, I think you're wrong with this perspective. It's okay to say this. How do you say it's important? You have to say it non-judgmentally. So again, you don't say like, it's not true. How could this be true? This is bullshit. You say it non-judgmentally, and you have to link this to what you heard before. And even then, even if you had the best arguments in the world, you build beautiful trust, you have a wonderful relationship with the person, even then, what could happen when you go to the last stage of this model, which is change? You're waiting for this big change, like you're waiting for the bank robber to say, all right, I'll just walk out, I guess. Yeah, I wasn't successful, fine, okay? Maybe you're waiting for that change because you're waiting for your gift. You did such a great job in the previous 4 steps. But what else can happen? What can happen? What can be the outcome of the bank robber story? Give me your thoughts. Besides the good outcome, guy says no. Yes. What else? What else could this bank robber do? He can shoot you. Yes. They can question your motives. They can shoot you. So really bad outcome can happen at the end. So you can tell me, Peter, you were telling me this fantastic model, and at the end you're telling me that we cannot guarantee the change in behavior. Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. You cannot guarantee the change in somebody else's behavior. You can only increase your chances. Why? Because you're never fully in control of all the factors that come into a decision. Partly because you don't know all of them, okay? You don't know all of them. So you can only influence somebody. And maybe also with the vaccination example, you gave the best explanations. you were really great, and at the end the person says, you know what, I still don't buy it. I think I'm gonna wait. And that's fine. And that's fine. What you have to look at as a checklist, when you have resistance from somebody you're talking to, you ask yourself, do we have trust? Have we done these first 3 stages? Because according to the FBI, and I'm in full agreement here with the FBI, the biggest mistake is jumping too soon to step number 4, the influence. That's our biggest mistake. Why? Because maybe we are stressed. There is also this phenomenon called the curse of knowledge. Does anybody know what the curse of knowledge means? What can it mean, the curse of knowledge?
I can only guess that you get to the conclusion faster, and then others didn't catch up yet, and you get burned like Galileo Galilei, who said that the world spins around the sun, not the other way.
Right. Okay. So actually, you're very knowledgeable people, and yes, knowledge is great. But knowledge can be a disadvantage when you know too much about a subject and you forget what it was like not knowing this stuff before. And it's going to be really hard for you to imagine that somebody you're talking to doesn't know this. So you use technical language. Like scientists, I think, make a mistake here. When they communicate about, for example, vaccinations or this COVID situation, I think oftentimes they make the mistake of being a little bit elite or not accessible, using a language that people don't understand. They try to explain stuff maybe from a high level because they assume that, yeah, this is so common knowledge that I can just use technical terms like that. And it's very important that the curse of knowledge can actually cause you to get frustrated and can get the other person to resist. Because yes, Csaba, you said because you're going too fast. Because you're going too fast because you know that you think that, yeah, it's so obvious stuff that why would I just slow down? Actually, the antidote to the curse of knowledge is empathy. Again, I know it can sound boring, but it's so important, so key. You put yourself in other shoes, try to, get into conversations with them about, what their level of knowledge is, and then explain something on that level using probably less technical terms. So yes, there can be an unpleasant surprise at the end when you get to the 5th level, but I would say that, and that's my personal experience as well, that if you do your first 3 stages well, if you establish that trust, if you really listen, if you empathize, if you're not trying to be smart too soon, I think you will have a much better relationship, and you will increase your chances of influencing someone. Again, being non-judgmental is also key, and it's so hard because if you're judgmental, then you're talking down to somebody. And if you're talking down to somebody, it will be very hard for you to change them. Nobody likes to be pushed. You don't like to be pushed. You don't like when somebody says, do this, do that, change your mind, you're not right. So actually, by being more patient, by spending more time with the person you're talking to, it will increase your chances. So that was the model developed by the FBI. Not a magic tool, unfortunately. Not a magic tool. But I think it's a good tool. Ask me any questions. You can unmute yourself and ask questions, or you can ask yourself also ask questions in the chat. I'll be glad to answer them if I can.
So I'm wondering, this sounds like a fantastic tool to discuss some very specific topic, and I'm thinking, how could this be applied? The same principle could be applied on something like a widespread net of lies like QAnon theories, or some less well defined problem, if you will, or argument.
Okay, so I think if we talk about the topic of fake news, misinformation, we can approach it from a lot of different levels. How to convince people, and today I focused on this interpersonal dimension. That when you're in communication with somebody, what do you do? I think that other factors can play into your success when we talk about the topics you mentioned, like, for example, bringing in somebody who this person trusts. Okay, maybe you're not the one that can achieve the impact because somehow you don't have the trust level, or this person is suspicious of your motives. But maybe if you bring in someone who they trust, who they like, who they look up to. Actually, in the literature, there's a lot of talk about convert communicators. Convert communicators. People who used to have the same beliefs than the person you're talking to or the people who you're talking to, but they changed. And when these people talk, you bring in these people, or you give access to your partner, conversation partner, to these people, they can have a big impact. So I think this topic can be handled on a lot of levels. I would say definitely the main approach when it's about having a dialogue, it's about trying to understand what's the underlying motive. Like somebody says, "Oh, I think that there are these politicians who have this club in New York, and they just fill in the blanks with the most horrific things." Instead of saying you're stupid, there is no club, or was like a pizzeria in Washington D.C. Don't say that, because that's putting the other person down. Try asking if you have the patience um, for the motives that are behind that. Like, why is it appealing to you to believe that there are politicians who do horrible things? And maybe through that conversation, you find out that they, for example, they really prioritize control in their lives. They want to control what's going on. I think that's the same thing with vaccine, people who are hesitant about vaccines, or maybe questioning or doubting the whole COVID-19 situation. A lot of these people, what they say is like, this is stupid, this is not happening, this is Bill Gates and 5G. But if you peel off the layers, what's underneath is like a yearning for control. They just want to be in control because they are so insecure. And for them to believe that, yes, this is happening, this is really screwed up, but this is happening, for them, they need to cling on to something which gives them a clear explanation. And I think once you get to that, once you understand what's the core need, what's the underlying motivation, maybe you have a chance. Maybe you have a chance. But you have to be patient and empathetic and get down to the core needs and underlying motivations. Anybody else? Thank you. Okay, Misha raised hand. Misha.
I'm just wondering what the success rate is for the FBI in utilizing this method.
Great question. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I think it's very hard to define success rates, because if you apply this model, let's say, to a conversation with your loved one at home, that can count as a situation. And it's very hard, I think, to measure the success rate. I don't know for the FBI what they had in the crisis negotiation unit.
We also have a couple of questions on the chat.
Yes, let's look at the chat.
Maybe unknown also raised his hand.
Okay, let me just say, is there Benza says, is there a way to test where you stand in establishing trust? It's a great question. Sometimes people, your conversation partner would explicitly say that, yeah, I think you get me now. Yeah, I really trust you. Sometimes they do that, but other times, maybe you have to ask questions. So the person is talking and you ask, is there more to it? Is there more information that you think you would like to tell me? So maybe you have to proactively, ask. Sometimes it's going to be obvious because the person says, yes, you understand me so much. I just love this. Of course, that's a test that you did a great job and you can move to level 4. Unknown, please say your question. I think you're from England, and I'm happy to listen to what you have to ask.
Okay, my name's David. I think this method obviously works in real time with, either in the same room or on a phone conversation. Okay, so how about the situation where you're trying to correct misinformation in a newspaper article and you feel that you need to respond back? Maybe you're the responsible agency and you want to correct misinformation in a journalist article. You can't really employ these tactics there, can you?
Yeah, this strategy is for interpersonal. So when you're actually talking with someone, I think in your case, I think it's more of a legal issue. Like, yes, I have a legal right to correct something or what I consider as a mistake or a factual mistake. I think it's more of a legal matter.
Or it's a moral thing, yeah.
It's a moral. But when you're talking to someone, when it's an interpersonal situation, actually, when like some people want to apply same logic of being very factual and being, very like rational, and usually that backfires when you just want to say, what you said about vaccines is absolutely not correct, and let me correct you because actually this vaccine, the mRNA vaccine, and you start going all scientific and rational and cold because you want just a correction. Well, in that case, I think you're going to run into resistance because, again, we are human beings and we don't like to be pushed. We don't like to be put down. So in those cases, you have to apply this model and you have to say, listen, I know that from the outside, it might seem like it was such a short amount of time or things like that, to be non-judgmental and to say, but this information is not correct. And let me try to explain to you why. But the point is that in order to convince someone or influence someone, you have to be you have to establish the trust. And it's hard because a lot of times we are stressed, we are anxious, we are just not in the best mood, and then it's going to be hard for us to be empathetic to someone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Michel was raising his hand.
Okay, Michel, it's you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, off the top of your head, in a situation where your time frame is very limited, such as if you have a police officer with his knee on somebody's neck, how might you make your first statement to try to modify that situation?
Well, that's like the highest level of difficulty, and probably you're not going to be doing that. I mean, if you have a very small success rate, this is going to be because maybe you strike a chord like, I have a son, I have a sick mother. You say something which resonates emotionally with the person who's doing that to you. That's your chance. But that's a very, very limited chance scenario. That's a very, very tough scenario.
Attila?
Yeah, it's like my question is, how is happening this with group of people? Many times, you know, also this bank robbery situation could be with group of people, right? Not just one.
So if you have to talk to more people, if you want to influence more people, then it's tougher, because then you need to gather information from more sources, and you have to, you know, get the input from more people. So it just makes your job a little bit more difficult, but it's not impossible. Plus, one thing is very important. The example I gave you, both in the vaccination case and in the bank robbery case, it involved one conversation, right? In life, usually we have more shots than just one conversation. So you can imagine the FBI model, or the trust that, you know, is so important and we talked so much about. You build up this trust over months, years, let's say in a relationship with someone, or maybe with a coworker. So just imagine that you build up this trust, and to a friend, to a coworker, maybe you can say something without actually having to build up the trust in that conversation, in that one piece of conversation. So even with a group, like let's say you're a teacher who is teaching a class, you build up a trust, you build up this trust over weeks or months. And when the class trusts you, then you can, you know, tell them information and they will be receptive to it. So with anybody you talk to, your wife, your husband, your friends, your coworkers, you have like this emotional bank account. Okay? And you need to check this emotional bank account. And usually, I mean, even with in a marriage, when you talk to your loved one and they just, you know, don't listen to you, or they resist, usually it's not because your advice is not smart enough. Maybe there is some issue of trust. Maybe you need to listen more, or maybe you need to listen more instead of giving advice. I know this. I'm very guilty of providing advice when I would just need to listen. So you build this up over time. So think of it as not like a one shot, but think of it as more of a long process.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I would have other questions, but probably we will need you back for that. Is like about the nonverbal communication and all that stuff. But thank you.
Thank you, Attila. Anybody else? Let me see in the chat. Okay, I'm having trouble understanding the difference between active listening and empathy. Could you contrast? Sure. So active listening is what you do. You're asking, you're listening to the person, you're mirroring what they had to say, like you're saying, oh, I hear that you're very angry about this situation, okay? So you're actually giving the emotions that you interpreted from what they had to say. And when you do that, when you're actively listening, the empathy level inside you will increase. Why? Because you will have a sense of where this person is coming from. As you have more empathy, you see that, okay, oh, this person, okay, so that's why the bank robber does that, because he wants to compensate for a bad childhood. Okay. Then you can listen probably more. So it's probably a relationship between the two, but very important that empathy is not the same as sympathy. It doesn't mean that you agree with the person and say, yeah, actually that's a good point. Okay, you don't interpret it, you don't judge it, you just listen and try to put yourself in their shoes. Anybody else? Let's see in the chat. Okay, how do I convince that my facts are more true than the other's facts? The source makes the difference. Very tough questions, because I just heard a statement that somebody's facts are another person's fake news. Right? You say, I read it in the New York Times. The New York Times, this is okay. So facts are unfortunately overrated, because I don't mean that facts don't matter, but when you want to win an argument with facts and you think that I'm so right, because then it elevates you above the other person. I'm smarter. What do you read? What kind of newspaper? You read that newspaper and you think that's fact. Right? You're not going to be so. I think what's more important is that the person you're talking to is open to what you have to say, and that is the factor of the first three stages. Of course, when they are open to you, then maybe they will turn around and they will accept your facts as better facts than the facts they believed before. But I think what you want to understand is that somebody is reading a bad newspaper, reading bad facts. You want to understand what's appealing for them about this, or why do you believe that? And once you understand that, then you can apply and you can tell them your good facts. All right. Are we out of time? I'm asking the organizers.
We can spend a few more minutes if necessary.
I think we can have one last question and then we can wrap up. It's past an hour. Any last questions?
Okay, so to what degree are first responders are trained in this outside the FBI? I don't know, but they should be. Actually, I think doctors should be trained in this, because let me just give you a quick example. You go to the doctor's office, you got the phone number of this fantastic specialist, world-renowned. You go to their office and you know that they are very busy, and you know that you will have 60 seconds to summarize your case, and you're all nervous and you're practicing the speech. You go in, you do that. You think that this person, this world-renowned specialist, just really was rushing, and they were just looking at their phone while you were talking. They are so busy. You leave their office and you're thinking, yeah, they gave me advice, but maybe they were not paying attention to me. So again, I go back to this. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So if a doctor is very knowledgeable but doesn't care or cannot show empathy, then you will have doubts, and probably you will go to someone who will be paying more attention to you next time, if you have a choice.
I think that's a good note to close it on. Please join me in a big round of applause for Peter. Thank you again, and I can promise we're not going to wait another 2 years to have you back. So thank you again, and thanks everybody for joining and spending your lunchtime or evening with us. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Thank you very much.